Welcome back. All right, so let's look at doing our line trace. I'm just going to close our game mode. We don't need that. What we do need is our character. So there it is. It's hiding from me. It's going to open that up and let's pop it. Let's just dock it here. And let's have a look in the viewport. So what have we got in here? We have, this is the character that we see in the game itself. So essentially what we're going to be doing is taking a line trace from somewhere here and projecting it into the game world, so somewhere out here. So we need to decide how far, and that's kind of a, it's up to us, I guess, really, how far we want to look out. What's the best thing we can do? I think first up, we want to, now of course, look, I'm going to go through this sort of in my own way. I might refer back to here if I mess something up, but hopefully I won't. But feel free, if you're doing it on your own, to come back to this one here using a single line trace. Again, if you do search UE5 line trace, you'll find it's one of the top ones to come up using a single line trace raycast by channel. That's the one we're looking at here. And it goes through the whole process of doing this right here. But I am going to, I'm pretty sure I can do this without referring to that. And I've probably got a couple of tips that we can use anyway to do this as well. So the first thing, let's go to our event graph and what do we got? We've got all our movement stuff here. Sometimes the hardest thing is deciding where you're going to put things. I'm pretty sure this stuff here we can delete. Yeah, this is some old hard stuff we're not using anymore. Just delete that. And that's our begin play thing right here. All right, I'm just going to pop it down here. So right click, trace, okay, it's not really giving me what I want. Let's try line trace. Here we go. Line trace. Okay, so you can see we've got a couple of options. We have just line trace by channel, line trace by profile. That's a new one. Okay, interesting. Line trace by components, so we can use components as well. Line trace for objects. We also have a multi-line traces as well, so by channel, profile, object. We just want the simplest one. That's all we need. So let's just go line trace by channel, bang, and this is what we get. So you can see we have start, and that's the start of the line segment. That's the start of the line trace. End, and congratulations if you guessed, that's the end of the line trace. We also have, what else do we have here? Trace channel. As I said, visibility is pretty much the normal one. We've got a couple of other ones as camera. We're just going to use visibility, so basically the same one. Trace complex, so true to test against complex collision. That we're just going to have basic collision. We're not going to worry about complex collision. Complex collision tends to use the, let's just cancel it. Complex collision tends to use the static mesh or the mesh itself instead of just the simplified collision that we often use in our meshes. We can pass through some actors to ignore as well. We can have a debug type also, and we can say ignore self. So, okay. So the first thing we want to do is say, where are we starting from and where are we going to? Now, my recommendation for this, easiest way to do this is to set up a start object. We can use our objects in our blueprints here, and we can use them, and we can get various attributes from them. So the best one to use, or one of the one of the only ones actually, is the arrow component. So I'm going to go, where are we? So this is our root, isn't it? Our FP character self. These are the components. Now, it actually doesn't really matter where we put it. We can pop it. It looks like, so the thing is, the reason I'm asking this is because when we come into here, this will change. So there we go. The character mesh is a child of the capsule component. So if we go to the capsule component, you can see it's got a transform. Oh, it's just got oh, interesting. Okay. So all it's got here is a scale. And we can go relative and world. I don't think we've talked about that much, but there's relative and world there as well. If we go to our mesh, you'll see we've got location, rotation, and scale. Now, the location is generally relative to the parent. So be aware of that. Although we're going to do it in such a way that's not going to be too much of a problem. So I'm going to make it a child of the capsule component, and then we're actually just going to get its location in world space anyway. So it's not going to matter too much. So I'm just going to add, I've got that selected, so it's going to put it as a child there. Add, we've got, where is it? Just type in arrow if it doesn't show it there, and select that one. And let's call this trace start. Now we want the trace to start. F, that'll focus that. Hold down Alt and I can go around there. Where do we want this to start? So if we're basically saying we want to work out where the player is seeing things, well, the camera is what we see things with. So we probably want our trace to start at the level of our camera. Okay, so let's just have a look where that is. And now we can change the units. Let's go to ones. And I kind of want it to be like that. You can just eyeball it. I mean, I could go and get the exact position of the camera. I don't think that's really necessary. Maybe down one more, like that. So that means our trace will start at the pivot point here. So in fact, we might just take it forward, maybe there. Let's change that back to 10. So that's going to be the beginning of our trace. So that's fantastic. So that means that we don't have to worry too much about working out various bits and pieces, getting the location of the camera and playing around with it and everything. We can just say, okay, just give me this arrow and we'll start there. So how do we do that? Well, first up, let's go back to our event graph. So we want the start here. We want to get our trace start arrow. So we can come into here. You'll also notice if we go to our variables, we have some components here as well. And we've got trace start and first person mesh, etc. So we want this one. So we can drag, if I hold down the control key and hit drag, I can drag it on and we get a reference to that. Now, once I've got that, I can say, we want the location, and we want the location in world coordinates. Get world location, okay. You'll also see there's set, well, we've also got a relative location. We can set relative location. There should be get relative location as well. Where's interesting. Okay, well, it's only giving us the get world location, which is what we want. So that's fine. So that's the beginning. Now, fantastic. We could just pop that in there, no problem. That's where we're going to start from. Now, we want to take that location and then work out what our end location is going to be. So this time what we want, sort of going into some vector stuff here, but don't worry about that too much. We want the camera. So I just held down control and dragged and I can get a reference to the camera. And we want something called a forward vector. Get our forward vector. Now this is going to tell us what direction the camera is facing. We're going to, and it's what we call a unit vector. Okay, so if we look at the text here, it says get the forward x unit direction vector from this component in world space. So that's great. So a vector is actually an x, y, z coordinate. And you can see we've got here x, y, and z. So this is what we call our vector. And that's just telling us the direction in which the camera is facing. So we've got our start for our trace, and that's just a point. And then we have a forward vector, which is a vector, which is a direction and a magnitude. And what we need to do now is multiply this by the length and then add it to this one, because we're going from here to another direction. So how large do we want this? Well, we're going to have to create, I think, a variable to give us that. And then we're going to multiply these together. So we could just, there's a couple of ways we can create variables. Haven't talked too much about variables yet. We can just come into here, into variables, and say, give me a new variable. And we're going to call it trace length. And we want that to be a float. Okay. And if we compile that, okay, we can now give that a value in here. I have to play around with different values. Let's try at the moment. So these are Unreal units. What's an Unreal unit? Yeah, good question. I think that might be centimeters or inches, one or the other. Let's just plug 256. Why did I put 256 in there? Just to give it a go. Just experience basically. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our forward vector. We are going to drag off from here, and I'm going to hit the star key. So Shift 8, which is the star, which is multiply. Shift 8, multiply, bang. And it's multiplying it by another vector. I don't want that. So if you get this, we don't want this. We want to multiply it just by a float. So let's delete that. Try it again. Drag off. Shift 8. Now, oh dear, this is where Unreal just, it gets a bit finicky. It tries to give you what you want. Let's turn that off. I know that I can multiply by a float. I know I can multiply a vector by a float. Come on. Let's try it this way. Let's grab our trace length. Control drag again just gives me a link to that. If I drag that one off and then can Shift 8 again. Have they changed things in this? Multiply. Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. Maybe they've changed things in Unreal 5. So let's grab this one and multiply again. So this looks a little bit different actually to how it used to be. You used to get multiplied by float. It used to tell you different types. So you got multiplied by pi. You can see there. That's interesting. So let's just grab that. So strange. What happens if we add a pin? Yeah, we can't do that. Okay. Control Z. If I put that in there, oh, all right. This is new for Unreal 5. If you've used Unreal 4, you'll know what I mean. That normally doesn't happen, but fantastic. That's wonderful. That's what I want. So multiplying a vector by a trace length. So this is a unit vector, which is giving us a direction and a length. This is just what we call a scalar, which is just a number. It's 256. So it's going to be 256 by that. Then we need to add it to this. So let's just drag off here. and hit plus, so shift and the equal sign at the top, add, and then pop that into there, and then pop that into there, and voila, we should have, with any luck, a line trace going from our character to this part in here. Now we've got some actors to ignore. We don't really. We've got an ignore self, so the one that would be the main one that I want to ignore. But at the moment, we could put those together, but we don't need to do that just at the moment. We want the visibility channel, fantastic, and we want to do some debugs. Let's do persistent. I can't remember which ones these are, and. Are we using tick already? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give this its own custom event. Okay, and let's call it my line trace. And that should do it. So we've got our hit out here. Not too worried about that right at the moment. I just want to make sure we're getting this part right first. So compile. It compiles, yeah. And let's just do it on tick. I don't think we're calling tick for anything else right at the moment. Okay, so I'm just going to grab all that. Pop it down here. Right click over. Right click over here and just go tick. Okay, and then we're just going to call my line trace. I'm not going to leave that here, but I'm just going to do it for now just because it's easier. We can set up a timer in a second as well. So again, compile, save. And coming to level 3, let's see if it works. There we go. Now it's kind of weird to see, isn't it? But it appears to be working. It's hitting something. So that should be going from our camera spot. And you can see when it's actually hitting something. And you can see if we go further back. So that number's probably about right, actually. Okay, fantastic. So far, so good. So that's actually working. Really nice. I'm pretty happy with that. And it worked first time. Excellent. Okay, so let's pause here and we'll come back and go to our next step.